Stop overthinking how to achieve success without sacrificing your life. Are you tired of sacrificing your personal life and health for career success? In this interview, we chat with Craig Bruce, who shares his journey of transforming his health and lifestyle while still achieving great success in his career. Discover the secrets to staying a high performer and prioritizing your well being without sacrificing your personal relationships and health. Join Craig's Ignite You community and partner with someone who understands the challenges you face as a business leader. If you're ready to take your career and life to the next level, don't miss this interview with Craig Bruce. Welcome to the Wellness Driven Life Show, where you're about to go on a wellness driven ride. Today's guest has partnered with hundreds of high-performing business leaders and entrepreneurs to ignite you so that you can achieve even more success in your career without sacrificing your life and key relationships. Craig Bruce is the founder and managing principal of Evolve Health and Lifestyle. He is an experienced business leader who managed a line of businesses across 10 countries in Latin America for a global management consulting firm for 25 years. Craig has also worked as a performance and lifestyle coach at Equinox Sports Club in Los Angeles, coaching business leaders to optimal performance and health. He is dedicated to empowering business leaders and entrepreneurs to maintain their high level of performance while prioritizing themselves. Craig is an international speaker featured on podcasts and stages across the US and Latin America, sharing the stage with Sharon Lechter, Les Brown, Bill Walsh, James Dentley, and Noel Lee. Please help me welcome Craig Bruce.
April, hello. Thank you. Thank you. And I love that intro. Wow. I wanted to see more of that.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the Wellness Driven Life Show, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. I love what you're doing. I love like I said, I loved your intro your intro video. It was just, it was very, it was calming yet motivational. I loved it.
Oh, that's powerful, right? Calming yet motivational. And I like that you think of it that way because that's definitely an essence that we want to provide here on the show. So thank you for the compliments. I appreciate that. And let's let the guests and audience know who you are. Tell us a little bit about you.
You know, that's such a great question because I think I'm still evolving.
We all are.
Pun intended, right?
Yes.
You know, for many years, people would ask me who I am and what I do, and I would automatically relate myself to, well, I'm a partner in a global management consulting firm, and that was really my identity. And at some point, that just began to take its toll. And now when people ask me who I am, it's really more about my mission and what I'm trying to do. So the way I introduce myself many times is that I'm a global influencer to high performing business leaders and entrepreneurs on their health and lifestyle. And I help them, empower them to achieve even more success without sacrificing their life and key relationships. And I personally am living my life through my key values. That's how I love to introduce myself now.
So, a few different things I'd love to talk about with that. Um, First off, what brought you there, and how did you come into knowing what your key values are?
Yeah, wow. That's those are two really good questions. So maybe let's start with the values. Uh, Growing up, I didn't really, never thought I really fit in. Um, I didn't, and I knew I was different, and I didn't fit in with the girls for because I wasn't a girl for obvious reasons, right? And I didn't fit in with the boys because I wasn't a jock. And
Mm,
yet I did really well. Did really well through high school, did really well through college, et cetera, et cetera. And over the years, as I began to look back and do some inner work around those troublesome years, that we all
mm,
go through as kids, what I discovered is that there were some reasons that I did really well, and those ended up being my core values, and I'll share those values. One is a connection to my source.
mm,
So I
mhm.
was, even as a young kid, I was always connected to a source.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't, I, you know, Where I am relative to that source today is very different than how I grew up, but there's a connection to the source.
Mhm.
I found that my ability, my superpower to develop long-term relationships and find my community was one of the reasons that I did really well. And so that led me to a key value of long-term relationships.
Okay.
And then third is a value of just diversity and inclusion. So I tended to surround myself in communities where I could be me, I could be authentic, and
Mm,
we could give each other, provide and receive support, and just, I think the word today is co-create together.
yeah.
And then finally, just health and wellness, and that didn't come until later. But those are my key values, and that's really, and you've asked that a way that no one's ever asked that before. So thank you, because that's how it evolved.
Well, my pleasure. And it's so important. The reason I ask is because, well, I'm always kind of trying to hone in on what my values are.
Hmm.
And I like that you said that the health and wellness didn't come until later in life because I feel we're always changing, right?
Hmm.
And those things do change. It doesn't mean that we are stuck to something or that our identity itself doesn't change
Yeah.
because we can get so fixated on this is who I'm supposed to be.
Right.
And when life changes and has these drastic altercations, we feel so lost and out of place because we
Yeah.
feel stuck in that identity.
Yeah.
And so values are one of those key aspects of who we think and feel that we are. And
Love it.
we had a guest on the show who he does value assessments, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of been on the top of mind too. And when people start thinking about it, I ask, how did you come to that conclusion?
Yeah.
Because it takes a while, doesn't it, to like really hone in on each value that you have. I think we can easily come up with 20 values, and then we have to bring it down into 3 to 5,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah, I agree. And part of the work that I do with my clients is asking them, who do you want to be and how do you want to show up every day?
Mm,
And part of that, a critical part of that discussion is, what are your values and what are your non-negotiables? And I think
yeah.
at most of my clients are at a more mature age, so 40 and above, but they've, in many cases, never really taken the time to identify what those values are, or
Yeah.
document them, write them down. But they're inside of them,
Yeah.
I find.
What do you think is so important about having values and really understanding that about ourselves?
It's a great question because I believe, and in my experience, that to live your best life now, you need to understand what those values are and those non negotiables, and use those as a filter for every decision you make in your life.
Mm, yeah, I agree with you. I think that when we have some clarity in that, it's much easier to make a better decision for ourselves and which direction we want to go.
Yeah.
And I wasn't with that understanding until recently,
Hmm.
um, or maybe I was in the past, but, we tend to, throughout life, lose some of those habits or the processes that we learn, and that's why it's kind of a constant thing
Yeah.
where we have to revisit ourselves. And again, like you said, you had something that kind of changed. Now I want to go back to childhood and
Yeah. Yeah.
how you felt like you didn't really fit in. That's amazing that that is the case, because you've done so many incredible things and on a worldwide perspective. So it's fascinating that you found that community
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah.
I love that, and I think that's beautiful that it's one of your values.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I want you to imagine that you're this really really smart eighth grader who realized that he didn't think he really fit in, but his go-to was that he was smart. And he's standing in front of class, an advanced English class, and he's reading a poem out loud. And he says, "He laid his head on her bosom." Yeah, right. The class laughed.
Mm,
Even the teacher laughed. And it was in that moment that for me, it was programmed into me that I need to be perfect or people
mm,
are going to laugh at me.
right. That acceptance piece.
And it followed me my whole life,
Yeah.
even in business. And I very successful in business, but I remember having coaching conversations with my managers to say, we need to get this new consulting offer out to the market. But I'm like, I don't have this. I don't have this. I don't have this. And they would be like, just get it out there. I'm going, no, 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 you know? And so to come back to your question is, I think that um, realizing that, doing the inner work that I needed to, and then realizing that it's not about perfection, it's about progress,
Mm,
which is what I tell my clients all the time, right? That has continued to lead to the success and honestly the acceptance of me.
right. Yes. And one topic of conversation that I love going into, because you're a speaker now.
Yeah,
And so going from this fear of speaking in front of others, of really it all comes down to the feeling of being accepted or not. And
yeah,
how did you get from there to this public speaking that you do?
yeah. Well, I will tell you, another guy. You are just asking the greatest questions. I love this. I think we could
Thank
talk
you.
for hours. I Over the course of the 25 years being in management consulting, I did presentations all the time. And actually, when I lived in Latin America, I actually did presentations in Spanish and Portuguese. I'm not sure I could do that today, but I always had a PowerPoint presentation to follow.
Mm.
And now, as a speaker in the health and wellness and high performance arena, I don't always have notes.
Right.
I don't always have a PowerPoint. And so for me, it's really come down to the fact of this is my story. This is my journey. This is my adventure. I've internalized it and I can talk about it all day. And realizing that it's not going to resonate with everybody, but for someone who it does resonate with, then that's a life that I'm touching.
Mm. Yeah. I've heard that from a few people that that do speak and who have maybe given me some encouragement and advice. But it's not about you, it's about maybe the one
Yeah.
person, the one soul
Yeah.
that you touch. And it does change that perspective
Yeah.
when you have to show up that way. And I tell you what, Craig, some of the best speakers are the ones that aren't going off of a slide or a PowerPoint or are
Yeah. Yeah.
so in the story, like they've practiced the same thing over and over and over, and you can tell,
Yeah.
right, that they've just trained themselves that way. But I feel that some of the best speakers have 100 stories, and they read the audience and they lead from their heart,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
speak
For
from
sure.
those stories, and
Right.
I like that.
Yeah, agree completely. And I think for me, it's also a journey. And I find that now, do I still get nervous? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and what I find is that I just need to center myself. I need to take some good deep breaths. I need to connect with people in the audience. Try, make eye contact. So there are all kinds
Mhm.
of little tricks. But yeah, I still get nervous.
What would you say about public speaking and personal growth? And if you would recommend it to everybody, anyone?
Yeah, well, um, I don't, it's not for everybody. I think if you, we all have a story. We all have a story, and the world deserves to hear our stories because there are people out there who are in pain, and they need to hear our stories. And so, if you think about it from that perspective, sharing your story can impact and even save someone's life. So I think that's the way I would position it to someone versus just public speaking. For me, it's more about telling your story
Yeah.
and connecting, right? We're wired for connection as humans.
Mhm.
And so that connection and you know what? The last 4 years or so, we lost that connection. That personal in-person connection. It's come back. Uh, but yet yeah, I think it's about connecting.
Well, yes, and I agree with you. It is that connection piece. We have to have it, right? And so you've talked a little bit about the last 4 years. What was your experience in the last 4 years?
Yeah. So my experience in the last 4 years, I'm blessed that no one that I really knew, except a high school friend, um, lost their life due to the pandemic. For me, it was an opportunity because I had left Equinox at that time. I left Equinox in 2019, realizing that I could do this on my own. While that experience was an amazing experience, I could do this on my own, coach high performing business leaders. And so I used 2020 as an opportunity to build my business, to get some additional certifications,
Mm,
and and I could do that all from without leaving my home. You know.
yeah.
However, at the same time, I continued to work out because I trained with my trainer. We trained in a park, so we were outside. And being in Los Angeles, you could do that even in the wintertime. So I continued to live that lifestyle while building a business plan. And then eventually I launched the business plan or launched the business and um, have had really good success because of a lot of the long-term relationships that I had developed. People had seen my, as a management consultant, they knew, like, and trusted me, and then they had followed my journey of transforming my life, and they said, "Oh, I think this guy may be onto something." So most of my clients have been former either colleagues or business connections and referrals. So I'm really blessed with that.
Yes, it's interesting those long-term relationships and how powerful that is for us. And I haven't had a lot until recently,
Mm,
more friendships and relationships that I can really say are going to last my lifetime.
mhm.
And I wanted to bring in one of our comments. Manly says, I appreciate Craig just being Craig. It is so refreshing to get away from the side deck and just be real. That's a connection.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Manly. I appreciate that. Uh, April, may I ask you a question?
Of course.
Good. What's changed for you with regard to finding some of those key relationships?
I lost a custody battle with
Mm,
my kids.
mm,
And so when we relocated to Texas from Colorado, my girls are older. I have 3
mhm,
daughters.
mhm,
And we did so because of my husband's job, which is wonderful, right?
mhm.
We expected it. That's what happens when
Yeah,
you move up somewhere in the world
right.
with careers.
Yeah, yeah.
And uh, with my daughters, I pretty much did not expect any changes. I said, "Well, of course you're coming with. I'm your mother." And my ex did not think that that should be the case, and so we went to court and had a big change in my life. The state of
Mhm,
Colorado decided that uh, the kids could have what they want, and so they remain in Colorado. So that was a huge, huge
mm,
life shift for me, Craig,
mhm.
because I was mom and I did everything mom. So everything with the girls, I worked until Manly and I moved in full time together. It was me working and taking care of the girls primarily.
Yeah,
So the shift that happened led me to get out of my comfort zone,
yeah,
go out and find people, make connections
yeah.
because I was going in a pretty far downward spiral
Mhm, yeah.
because it was such a big transition. I became a mother very young,
Mhm.
and so I wasn't used to having friendships. I didn't create that for
Yeah,
myself in my
yeah,
life. And I was too busy working.
yeah, yeah.
So that's what happened for me, Craig. And then also going into an entrepreneurial world,
Mhm,
so leaving law enforcement and any corporate, I decided that I was going to journey out into entrepreneurship. And so
mhm.
that led me to and kind of forced me to get out and make relationships and connections if I wanted to, excel in my business. And the show has really built incredible connections for me. And that's my favorite part.
Very cool. Well, first of all, thank you, and I honor you for sharing that story with me, and obviously with your audience. Thank you. Things happen for a reason, I believe. So, um, yeah. So, thank you for sharing that. It's interesting you talk about relationships, and it's one of the areas that I find with my high performing business leaders that they're they're crushing it in their career, and yet they realize at some point, and that may be when they're 40, 50, somewhere around there, that they that they've had to make some sacrifices along the way.
Mhm.
Sacrifices in their health and sacrifices in relationships. And they also come and we have discussions around, kind of once we get some of the basics around their health and wellness. So, how you nourish your body, how you restore your body, how you move your body. Once we get some of those basics in place through a morning ritual and an evening ritual that are all science backed, the conversation will quickly turn to what else in your life needs nourishing, and
Mhm.
relationships comes up.
Yeah.
Because along the way, climbing that ladder, there have been relationships that were valued but had been left behind. And at the end of the day, what are we going to remember more? What's going to be around longer are those relationships. But climbing that ladder, and I did it, and we all do it, and there's nothing wrong with it. Um, a lot of those relationships go by the wayside. And numerous conversations, and we and relation building relationships and maintaining relationships takes a lot of work, and we
Mm,
only have enough hours in the day. So I have conversations with my clients around, okay, so give me a list of 10 relationships that you want in your life right now, and then let's prioritize those. And so, at the top
mm,
of the list are generally a spouse or a partner and kids and maybe grandkids.
mhm.
That's that kind of that level one. And then level two are, some close friends, and it might even be a college friend that you've lost contact with. And we literally build out a plan for nurturing those relationships. And in many cases, it's reinitiating those relationships.
Yeah.
It's really cool when that happens.
It is, and it is absolutely vital. The more that I have created better relationships and I have nourished them,
Yeah,
the more I realize the importance of it.
yeah,
Community and connection are just a big aspect
yeah,
for me. And
yeah.
when I began the Wellness Driven Life show,
Uh-huh.
well, I should say your number of years back, it was Wellness Driven Life,
Uh-huh.
which became the Wellness Driven Life show. But wellness is under this huge umbrella, and there's so many different aspects of
Yeah,
that. And that is one of them.
yeah.
It's a big one. And like you said, going into, I help my clients have some physical things that they do morning and night. They build this routine,
Mhm.
and there's also these other aspects, and that is the relationship piece.
Yeah, I love it. I knew that's why we were gonna connect. The what I have found in coaching hundreds of business leaders is that there are really 3 areas that we focus on that are gonna move you forward in the direction of living your best life now. And the first area is consciousness. People often refer to that as mindset. I actually think it's a
Mm,
higher state of being. And you used a word earlier that is spot on. It's about clarity, intention, and
mhm.
it's about growth. So that consciousness is one area that we focus on. The second area that we focus on is lifestyle, and that's how you nourish, restore, and move your body. And then the third area is community. And
Oh,
that's really about you and how you uh, talk to yourself.
mm,
It's about the relationships that you're involved in, and then it's also about the career piece.
yeah. Well, we spend the majority of our time in our careers.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Uh, well, thank you, Craig, so much for sharing. We're going to go into our commercial. And when we get back, I can't wait to hear more about what it was like for you in corporate and what activated the
Yeah,
changes that you are now creating in life.
cool.
Stay tuned.
With key ingredients supported by over 80 clinical trials, the exclusive formulation of the Bella Grace Collagen Elixir is changing lives everywhere. Ingesting collagen peptides alone is not very helpful. This is where most collagen products fall short, and where Bella Grace changes everything. Unlike other collagen products, the Bella Grace Collagen Elixir controls the gene switches which activate collagen creation and disables the enzymes that break down the matrix. Bella Grace Collagen Elixir contains Verisol, the world's best and most clinically studied form of collagen. These elite collagen peptides influence the skin's collagen metabolism directly from the inside. Nature's most powerful antioxidant. 6,000 times more potent than vitamin C, Astaryl astaxanthin prevents the activation of gene switches that drive inflammation and activates the gene switch responsible for cellular repair and longevity, forming bridges across cell membranes, protecting them from free radical attack. Amazonian cat's claw suppresses the enzymes that degrade collagen and our skin matrix caused by oxidants and inflammation. It simply turns the switch off. The world's most studied collagen, plus activating the genes that make collagen, plus switching off the genes that break down collagen, has resulted in something the world has never experienced. The Bella Grace Collagen Elixir. Start your 30-day Bella Grace challenge today.
You can find out more about Bella Grace in the description. And so, coming back to you, Craig, you describe yourself as this former burnt out global executive who was going into lack of sleep and just mismanaged care for yourself. And I would love to know a little bit more about that. Let's dive deeper. What's your story?
Yeah. So imagine that you are boarding your return flight home, and it's been a 15-hour day, and you've got probably another 3 to 4 hours before your head hits the pillow. And as my Southern grandma would say, I was sick as a dog.
Hmm.
And you get settled into your window seat, and the flight attendant approaches you, and you think she's going to offer you something to drink, but instead she bends over and says to you, "You look horrible."
Oh,
Yeah. Well, April, I turned and I looked at myself. I saw my reflection in that little that airplane window, and tears started welling up.
oh,
And I just
yeah.
said, "Craig, you're a grown man crying in public. Stop it. Your life sucks." But to everybody else, I was killing it.
Right.
But honestly, the truth was I was killing myself. And even though because I'd wake up in the middle of the night and my mind was racing and couldn't get back to sleep, and no energy the next day, and then I'd have to late in the afternoon I'd have to go get a shot of caffeine, which is the absolute wrong thing to do. I struggled with pain and just my weight, and I was working out, I was eating fairly well, all that kind of stuff. And the very next day, I landed in the doctor's office, and my doctor ordered bed rest.
Wow.
But you know what my version of bed rest was?
Not bed rest.
It wasn't. It was my laptop, my cell phone, and my conference calls from my bed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no break.
Yeah. And I think it was in that moment that I just realized that my current lifestyle had become my new normal, and it was killing me. And I want to repeat that, because I think that most of the clients, I would say all the clients that I work with, is their current lifestyle has become their new normal, and it's killing them. A fish doesn't know it's in water until it's not.
Mm.
Or a bird doesn't know it's in the air until it's not. And so for me, then at some point, I just realized that I just had to take control. Something had to change. And I had to really become an advocate for my own health and well-being. And fortunately, I was blessed that I could make some decisions, left the consulting arena after 25 years, went back to school to really become health and wellness, moved from Chicago to LA, and started coaching people like me. And that's where I am today, doing it on my own.
So you came to this point where your health was just, it got to you.
It did. Now, I could have continued. I could have recovered.
Yeah. So many of us look like we're killing it on the outside, like you said, but we're really killing ourselves on the inside.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And then we don't make a shift or a change until it's almost too late. I mean, it has to be so extreme. I'm not sure why we do that to ourselves as human beings, but it's just the way it is, isn't it?
It is. And I think my thought on this, and I'd love your thought, my thought is it's because we are high achievers, we're doers.
I think yes. And adding to that, I feel that we get so caught up in societal standards
Absolutely.
and what we are supposed to do, show up as, that we refuse to show otherwise, and to take a moment to step back and be like, you know what? Wait a minute. I don't have to show up this way. I don't have to be this person.
Right.
And it's okay to go slow. I think a lot of it is that we don't realize that it's okay, and things will still get done if you slow down and you take time for yourselves.
Yeah. And so for me, I'm not suggesting that everybody has to retire or leave the workforce, because not everybody's there.
Right. Certainly not.
Right. What I do know, and the work that I do with my clients is, you can continue to have this success and prioritize you and take care of yourself. You do have to make some shifts, but there are some very specific science-based behaviors that if you just implement, things like, first thing you do in the morning, don't reach for that cup of coffee. Drink some water. All right? Because we know that the body gets dehydrated overnight for all kinds of reasons. And if we drink water first before we drink that caffeine, right? We also know that if we can get out in the morning sunlight and get just some movement, that's going to set us up because it resets our circadian rhythm. And you can even do that in Chicago in the dead of winter
Yeah.
because there's still light coming through the clouds.
Yeah.
It might be a little cold, but the cold actually is stimulating to the body as well, we're now finding.
Yeah.
It means ending caffeine by 2 p.m. in the afternoon, because if you drink it after that, because caffeine stays in your body for 6 to 8 hours, it impacts the quality of your sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then get off your electronics at least 30 minutes before you go to bed. We'll start with 30 minutes, right?
Right.
Some kind of, so, and those were the kinds of science-based behaviors that, had I known those, then I could have continued to perform at that high level, because
Right.
I'm giving my body the time to recover.
Yeah. What do you say, Craig, for people who feel that they don't have time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I guess I would say I would go back to a discussion around, what are your values and what's important to you in life?
Mm.
And most people answer that with some form of family. And if you can tie it back to that, and what's the individual's, I call it their MOFA, their motivating factor, their why, then it begins to resonate with them.
So tell me a little bit about what aspects of other aspects of health have you discovered work really well for you? What does a daily habit system look like for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I have a morning ritual and I have an evening ritual, and they kind of collide. Collide's not the right word. So first thing I do in the morning is, I begin my morning with connection to my source. So there's
Mm.
some meditation time, some spiritual guidance there. And I do that before I get out of bed, because if I get out of bed, then the dogs are saying, "Hey, Dad, you got to take care of us." And then I will then give the dogs some water. I drink some water, 16 ounces, and then I take the dogs out into the backyard. And I'm blessed to live in a warm climate, so I'm barefoot. I'm able to watch the sun come up. The sun's already up. So I get that 5 to 10 to 15 minutes of resetting my circadian rhythm.
Mm.
And then 4 days a week, I'm actually at the gym working on strength and mobility and aerobic capacity, cardio capacity. And then I always come back and, I've got 5 or 6 hours of work, but I always stop for lunch.
Mm.
Because when I was consulting, I never really stopped for lunch. I would bring my lunch back to my desk, and it was a healthy lunch. And I would get on conference calls, and I'd look down, and 30 minutes later, and my lunch is gone, but I don't remember eating it.
Right.
So I
You're
always
not really being present with
not being present.
the act of eating
No,
and
we're not. We're not.
enjoying.
And we also know that, up to 20% of the digestive process actually starts before food hits your lips. And so I was missing out of up to 20% of that whole digestive process, and the food being absorbed and used for energy. And then I don't do much caffeine, but if I do have some green tea, I always stop by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then my evening is really focused around shutting off all electronics at least an hour before I go to bed. And then I have a wind down routine of breathing. I just moved from LA to Palm Springs, and in the house that I remodeled, I have a infrared sauna. I
Oh,
put that in, so that's been added into either my morning or my evening,
yeah.
which is really helping with the recovery.
Yeah, tell
Uh,
us a little bit about that. I don't know if everybody knows too much about that. So what is your knowledge in saunas?
Yeah, so my knowledge is not extensive in saunas. I'm probably not the right person to ask, but what I know is that with the infrared sauna is that it penetrates deep into the skin, into the muscles, releasing toxins, sweating. It's great for muscle recovery. And what I have seen is it actually, when I do it in the morning and then take a mini cold shower, that it's really, really refreshing. And then in the evening, it begins to unwind me. So
Yeah.
I do it 3 times a week.
Better sleep, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. My sleep scores. I wear an Aura ring, and my sleep scores have actually gone up because I'm using it more consistently as well. I'm getting into more deep sleep, which is great because
Mhm.
that's where the body recovers. That's where
Heals,
the
yeah.
growth hormones, right, are secreted. So that's yeah. It's actually been pretty cool.
Now, Simon Gowen is the gentleman who referred you. And for those of you who don't know, he is Wim Hof certified. He's one of the Icemen. So
Yeah,
tell me a little bit about your relationship with him. And have talked about, the cold
yeah,
and cold showers. And so how has that affected you as well?
yeah. So I met Simon. He actually hired me as a coach at Equinox Sports Club in Los Angeles, and I knew he and I were going to get along really well because he's direct and to the point. It's that British directness that I absolutely love, and he was very supportive of me and my career there, and I moved pretty quickly there. And then when he left, we maintained a friendship, and I see him periodically when I go back to Los Angeles. And he actually connected us, so I'm very grateful. I'm grateful for that connection as well. And he is Wim Hof certified. He's the guy we need to be talking to around the cold. What I use cold for is just cold showers. I didn't put in a ice bath. I thought about it, but at some point I just didn't. But the community I live in has a pool that's not heated, so I could always do that. But that's really about um, invigorating the body. It's about muscle recovery. It's about activating more brown fat, which is the good fat in our body.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's what I know about it. I do know that it also does put some stress on the body. So if you're, and this was my case, is because of the lifestyle that I had led, my adrenals were shot.
Mhm.
And we discovered that through some functional medicine testing when I was working with a functional medicine doctor. And so they took me off of those cold showers because it was just adding undue stress. But now that we've got all that stuff figured out, I'm
Well,
back
that's
to cold
interesting
showers.
though, how, not everything is gonna work for everybody,
Absolutely.
and, it's gonna be different times. Our bodies
Yeah.
need different things for healing at different points of our lives, and so
Yeah.
I think that is a key point to bring up.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, there's so much information out there. Do I? on intermittent fasting, right? Well, intermittent fasting, or I like to think of it as time restricted eating, doesn't work for everybody,
Right. Yeah,
right?
and you're right, there is so much out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I feel it could be very overwhelming for many, and for those of us, and it sounds like you for a number of years now have, really utilized so much of their lives in researching, and it really is about just trying
It
to
is.
see what works for you.
Yeah, it is. And I will also say that for me, what was somewhat life changing was working with a functional medicine practitioner who and ran a series of tests around my adrenals and the sex hormones and the gut permeability and all those kinds of things, and took me off of time restricted eating because of
Mm,
because of the stress it was placing on my adrenals until we got the adrenals repaired. So I would
right.
also say that and that's an area of medicine that is growing, um, because the functional medicine practitioners actually look for the root causes of what's happening in the body. They see the body as fully integrated, and so that's something that has been really helpful for me to because it's about testing, not guessing. Should I
Right.
be taking magnesium? Well, I don't know, but let's find out.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I love the tips and tricks that you brought in, and the things I like that you kind of have broken it down for yourself. Morning routines, evening routines. It makes it much more simpler because when we start to make changes, create routines, it takes time. And if we add too much in and on top of it, we're not going to succeed because we become too overwhelmed.
Yeah, I completely agree. And again, it is not everything is for everybody,
Right.
and you just have to you have to see how your body responds. And what I also find is that in those morning rituals and those evening rituals, is that if the more specific you can get with the time. So, for example, wake up 6 a.m. 6 and then wake up at 6 a.m., drink 8 ounces of water, get outside. 6:30 shower, right?
Mm,
Right. So the more you can get specific with times in those rituals, I find particularly with really these high performing business leaders and entrepreneurs, is that there's a greater likelihood that you'll actually do it.
right. I agree. Now, you have been leading and coaching others now for a little while. If you're open to sharing, what's one of your favorite success stories thus far?
Yeah. Wow. Let's think about that. I'm gonna generalize, in that when in working with women who tend to put others first and
Common.
themselves, and it's very and themselves last, because that's the way that was what your mom did and that's what your grandmother did, right? With these very successful business leaders, women who can buy anything they want, they can travel, they're very successful. They reach a point where they ask the question, well, what about me?
Interesting, isn't that?
It is. It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And some of them are in relationships that aren't working. But for me, what I love is when we begin to have those conversations, and they get clarity on who they want to be and how they want to show up going forward.
Mhm.
And they're able to articulate that. And they're able to articulate what their values are and how they're going to live their life going forward. For me, man, that there's nothing greater than that. And so those are the kind of success stories that I absolutely love.
Yeah, it's almost like this aha, because
Yep.
we don't take time to reflect on what it is. And I think that it starts getting to a point where you're thinking about it a little bit, and then you're thinking about it more often. And then you come to a point where you're like, okay, I need to reflect on this. I need to sit with myself. And more times than not, we have to have somebody coach and lead us through that.
Yeah.
It is just too difficult to be able to do that because we're so routined in the constant day in and day out that we don't know how to lead ourselves into it. We have to have someone outside of ourselves guide us. And so I want to make sure that everybody knows how to find you. And so it's been displayed here. And also for those of you who are listening in, I'm going to read it to you. Also, it is in the description along with other links on how to find Craig. His website is www.evolvehealthandlifestyle.com. Again, that's www.evolvehealthandlifestyle.com. Craig, it's been incredible having you as a guest on the Wellness Driven Life Show today. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I'm gonna, and I said it earlier, but I'll end with this: is um, it's about progress, not perfection, and small hinges swing big doors.
Mm, I like that. I haven't heard that saying before. Small hinges swing big doors.
Yep.
So the small things, the little things that we do, the micro bites, right?
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, again, thank you so much for being a
Thank
guest
you.
on the show today.
My pleasure.
It's been awesome having you share your stories, your insights. And I want to again let the audience know where to find you. It's going to be in the description below. His website is www.evolvehealthandlifestyle.com. And want to let everyone know goodbye for now. And we will see you later.